Hi, I'm Dana, and today I wanted to talk about autism and alcohol because we're so often infantilised and treated like children that I feel like the conversation of drinking while autistic doesn't come up that often. And personally, when it has, I've exclusively seen very negative experiences, which are completely valid, you know, it happens, I have some of my own. But I just wanted to talk about it and make a conversation out of it because I thought it'd be kind of interesting, and I especially kind of want to know what other people's experiences of it are as well, I think. It's one of the things that I think is like an autism thing where I sort of subconsciously assume that everyone has similar experiences to me, and then I suddenly realise like, oh crap, they don't, about like different aspects of life. Like some things I'm like, I know you have a different experience. But other things, I've sort of grown up thinking everyone's experienced the same thing until I suddenly realised they haven't. And this is one of them. So, to start with, my own experience with alcohol, it's been quite vast at this point. I haven't drank that many different things, but I've drank quite a lot of different times. So one of the first big things that I thought was very normal, and I think kind of is within the UK, I just don't think it's very common in a lot of other countries, but I started drinking at around 13, 14. And that was like with other people my age for the most part. Like it wasn't like I was getting older people to buy the alcohol or anything. Like it was literally a group of us would meet up at someone's house if their parents were out, or on the beach, because I went to a school near the ocean, so we had a big beach. And a group of us would meet up and we'd be like, oh yeah, I robbed this off my parents, or my older brother bought us this, oh I found this laying around, you know, like everyone just had a little bit of alcohol from wherever. And sometimes we'd drink our own, sometimes we'd share it around. Sometimes we'd pour it all into one bottle and be like, woo, and it was disgusting. And we'd just get, you know, reasonably drunk. For 14, 15, 16-year-olds, you know, we thought we were like so drunk. And I've definitely been significantly drunker since. But for that age, it was, you know, quite a lot. And it meant that for me, I very quickly learned that I can feel more normal if I'm drunk, if I've had a few drinks, if I'm a little bit tipsy. I feel like I can communicate better, I feel like I pick up on more, I feel like I'm like quicker wit, like, and I'm drunk, so maybe to everyone else I'm still just a blithering idiot, but I very quickly learned, oh, if I drink the anxiety goes away and I feel like I can just communicate with people easily and everything's good, you know? I almost felt like I became holistic, which meant that for me at that age, I was constantly the person being like, hey, should we get drinks in? Should we have a drink? Should we drink some alcohol? And other people would quite often be like, no, we drank like 2 days ago. Give it a break, relax a little bit. And I'd be like, oh, okay. Because it wasn't really that I wanted to be drunk. It wasn't really that I wanted the alcohol. It was that I wanted a smooth, nice feeling social interaction, which up until that point I'd only had while drunk, you know? And I have since... Sorry, I had a parcel arrive, but I was saying, I have since found people that I can have those like smooth, pleasant feeling social interactions with without having to be drunk. But at the time, that hadn't happened for me. So I very much got the vibe at an early age that, you know, that's the only option, that's the only way I can do it. The only way that I can enjoy socialising is by being a little bit drunk. And I think that I was very, very lucky that I had people around me who were not in the same place, who didn't feel the need to drink all the time. You know, they were much more sensible people, realistically. And they were like a year or two older than me for the most part, maybe a little bit more. But no one was like, you know, we were all the same age range. But had I been around people, like I knew people in school that like drank a lot and were like constantly party people. I just didn't really get on with them. So I spent most of my time around the people who would drink once a week, once a month, you know, they'd be like, no, I'm not really feeling it tonight. But when they did want to drink, I still felt a lot of peer pressure to go along with it, even if I didn't necessarily feel like it in that moment. And I also very rarely didn't feel like it because it made me feel normal. It made me feel like I could be a person. So I drank quite a lot. Then I hit 16 and I moved away, so I didn't have any of those people anymore. So I didn't drink for like several months. I'm not sure how long the break was. I think it was about 4 months between me moving from Real to when I started college. So I probably had about 4 months where I just didn't drink and I didn't really think about it because it wasn't there. I didn't have the opportunity. I didn't have the friends to drink with. There wouldn't have been at any point. Hi, Ringo. And it just didn't really bother me. I didn't really care. It was whatever. But then I started college and very quickly made friends with a woman who was 22 and going through a lot mentally that she had not received any sort of help for and did not want help for. And that meant that she loved drinking. She absolutely loved it. She adored it. And as someone who was like, oh, I can drink and be a normal, I went along with it. It's one of those things where I'm like, oh, I kind of encouraged her. I probably shouldn't have done that. But also, I was 16 and she was 22 buying my drinks. So, like, we'd go to a bar on our lunch break and, like, order shots. It was not a good idea and something I really quite deeply regret doing. And this was the first time that alcohol didn't make me feel like a normal person. More often than not, when I was drunk around her and her friends, I was the joke, I was the laughing stock, and I didn't really know why. I didn't know what I'd done or said or whatever else that was so hilarious to them. But they would laugh at me a lot and it made me feel terrible. And it didn't take very long before I stopped hanging out with them and stopped drinking altogether, because it just, it didn't feel like it made me normal anymore. It felt like it was making me more of an outlier and more of like an alien to these people and making them like me less. And that was the exact opposite of what I wanted. So I stopped drinking like pretty much at all for a bit. I stopped drinking to like be drunk for a long while. I'd go out and I'd get like a vodka and coke or a beer. I'd still have a drink, but I didn't really drink to get drunk or tipsy for a long while. It was just a drink here and there. Probably up until I was like 18, 19. And then once I could buy alcohol myself, that was when I started having I don't want to say it was really binge drinking, because I think that there's, I think binge drinking is really serious and something that should really be approached with a lot of things that I don't have. And it was a case of like, I would get very drunk, but it was still maybe once a month if you were lucky kind of thing. And then I made friends with another girl who was going through it and really enjoyed a good party and a good bit of drinking. And I was kind of put off it again, because she'd go out and get super drunk and I'd be the person that'd have to be like, no, you don't want to go home with the creepy guy that you didn't like the look of at all at the start of the night. No, we're not going to go and do this crazy idea you just had at 4 a.m. when we've just finished up in the club. I very much became like a babysitter. And I had a few moments where I would also get super drunk and I remember dancing around people and like just being myself. And I remember getting a few looks and just not caring. And it was a really nice moment. But most of it was just looking after other people and being like, oh shit, I am too drunk for this and I'm going to have to drink a load of water and try and sober up, because they're too drunk to even manage that. And it kind of sucked. So again, I stopped being friends with them pretty soon after, left it for like a couple of years, completely just isolated myself, didn't see anyone, would occasionally have a drink with my partner and that was the lot. And then I made friends with another group of people who saw drinking as much more of like a fun time thing, and they weren't regular drinkers for a long while, but the more I spent time around them, the more I felt like they liked me more while I was drunk and more when I bought the alcohol. So I would quite often buy like a big bottle of something to take with me when I was meeting up with them, because we almost exclusively met up at each other's houses, and everything just felt a lot easier if I was drunk. It felt like the excitement of seeing me was nothing unless I had a bottle of something with me, and it became a whole thing for me, because anytime I had spare money I'd buy in a bottle of something ready for when I didn't have money but was going to see them, which meant I always had some sort of alcohol in the house, which meant that for me very quickly it progressed from just drinking when I was around people to just, oh well, it's 6:30 in the evening and I'm bored, so I may as well have a drink. Oh well, it is after 5, and it wasn't daily, it was maybe every other day for about a month. And that was when I was like, yo, this isn't okay. I'm not doing something good for myself here. This isn't helping me. It's not a good thing. I'm going to stop doing it. And I just stopped doing it. I do very much think that alcoholism is a disease, essentially. I think that most addictions can become a disease. I don't think that anyone should feel like it's their fault for having become addicted to anything. But I did feel like if I continued in that pattern, I was gonna be an alcoholic, and I was like, I either continue this and it becomes really, really fucking hard to stop doing it, or I just stop doing it now, well, it's just sort of whatever. So I did, and I don't really feel like I've had an issue with alcohol since. I feel like I've learned how to manage it, how to manage myself. I've done a lot of cringy, embarrassing things while drunk. I mean, I say that, there's a lot of things I've done while drunk that I think are absolutely humiliating, and then I hear other people's drunk stories who were like going out to clubs a lot more and stuff and like really getting crazy, and I'm like, oh shit, I haven't done anything, I'm all good. But there's definitely a few things I find super cringeworthy that I did. But it's one of those things that I've consistently wondered if I like experience differently as an autistic person, because I don't feel like I stop being self-aware while drunk, you know? Like, I might have less anxiety, I might feel like I'm able to be more of a normal, sociable person, but I don't feel like I like, you know, some people when they drink, they become like an absolute asshole, or they just, it's like they're a different person in some way, or like one emotion takes them over. And I don't feel like that's me. I don't feel like I really like lose control of myself even when I'm like super, super, super drunk, you know? Like, I might not be able to walk very well. I might be stumbling everywhere and laughing and be like, oh my god, I'm so drunk. Not on my laptop, please, Otis. But if someone were to talk to me, I'll still reply more or less in the same way that I would while sober. You know, I might overshare a little more. I might say the odd thing that's a bit much. But like, I'd never be an asshole to someone just because I'm drunk, you know? Like, I've known so many people who will do something and then the next day they're like, oh my god, I don't know why I did that. And like, I get that too, but I don't feel like I get it anymore when I'm drunk than I do when I'm sober, you know? Like, I feel like I'm only physically affected by alcohol, I guess. Like, I'm a little slower, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not like I am the height of wit and speed while drunk. Like, I'm definitely a little slower because I'm drunk. But I feel like it more so just affects, like, everything's a little blurry, everything feels a little wobbly. You know, I don't feel like it affects, like, me personally as a personality, as a human being, if that makes sense. But then I also kind of just wonder if it's something that's been like overhyped in society and something that, like, you know, because obviously the way that we see drugs and alcohol perceived in films is not the same as how we actually experience them. Like, when, but then that's what I don't know, because I'm like, but is the way that we're showing drunkenness in movies the way that other people are experiencing it? Because it's not how I experience it. So it's very easy for me to be like, oh, well, the movies don't show how people experience it, but they could be. You feel me? Like, I don't know. But considering our brains are different, I do think it's quite likely that we experience alcohol in a different way to a lot of neurotypical people. And I'm just sort of curious. I'm just sort of curious on how we experience it. It's different, how different autistic people experience it differently. I meant to touch on the fact as well that I feel very physically affected by alcohol, in that I almost always vomit and I almost always end up feeling nauseous while drinking. Literally, like, the first sip of drink, I'll be like, oh, I feel sick. And it's mostly the taste, honestly. Any sort of alcohol has like an alcohol taste to me, where it immediately just makes me feel a bit nauseous. So I vomit pretty much every time I drink, and that's not much fun. But I don't really know how to make it stop. Like, even if I've eaten beforehand, I just feel sick as soon as I taste alcohol. I just sort of have to push through it and deal with it. Yeah, but the other way that I think that we most likely experience it differently as well is that it's such like a community social thing, you know? Like, there's such a culture to drinking. Like, we literally hear about drinking culture, and I don't get it. I don't understand it. You know, when people like go out on their own and just like dance with people and get really drunk and then go home, or when people go out on the pool and like pick people up and go out for hookups and just like all these things that involve being drunk and meeting people, I don't understand any of it. I don't get how it's done. I don't think I'd really like to do any of it, to be fair, but I mostly just don't understand how you do it. Like, even when I went out with friends, I most often ended up on my own. I can't just make friends with people out here because they're all already with their friends. I don't want to be like the lonely fuck that's trying to make friends in the club, you know? It's not a culture that I fit in, and it's not a culture that I understand. And I think that the societal view of drinking is really fucking weird. I don't get why it's such a big thing. I don't get why so many events have to be around alcohol. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I mostly do just want to hear your thoughts and opinions and comments on this one. I really just wonder if it is actually a different way of experiencing it, or if we are experiencing it the same as the neurotypicals. Or at least for the most part, you know, like, obviously everyone experiences things differently anyway. But I'm very curious. I'd like to hear other people's thoughts and opinions, because I always leave stuff out. I always forget stuff in these videos, even when I make notes like I have for this. There's still always at least one comment where I'm like, I wish I'd said that. I wish I'd thought of that. So I really appreciate your comments. I am trying to actually reply to them. But I do always read them and I really enjoy reading them, and that's the important thing. So if you haven't already and wanted to, please do subscribe. I post videos on Tuesdays and Fridays at 4:30 p.m. UK time. All of my links will be down below. I've got TikTok and Instagram and all of the trendy cool kid stuff. You can also donate to me on Ko-fi. I'll learn how to say it one time. You can donate me money there and it's much appreciated because I am pretty broke. But there's never any sort of pressure. I don't expect anyone to pay me for my content. Like, that's for YouTube to do one day, please. Please. Like, this is work. I just don't get paid for it. So if you wanted to, you can do, but there's no pressure. And most importantly, whoever you are, I said something I don't normally say. I went a bit TV presenter, like children's TV. Did anyone else want to be on Fingertips or High Five? Whoever you are and wherever you are, I hope you're having a lovely morning, evening, day, afternoon, week, month, year. And I'll see you again in a few days.